Yeah.
So, good morning.
He comes sometimes. What? He comes sometimes.
First, I just want to make a brief remark on the situation in Israel today, and also the significance of yesterday's Parsha for Hanof. We are having an enormous fire going over the whole land. And we have a principle that adopted by the Gemara already and developed especially by such giants as the Chofetz Chaim, that we have to, obviously, when there's a fire, we need to get maximum help to save the lives and the possessions, and let's call it even the economy of the people of Israel. And therefore it's fitting that everyone should include in his the requests from Hashem. Tefillah is one of the strong powers of Am Yisrael to add to whatever we do physically through those who are better equipped to extinguish the fires. We have to pray for rain that should come, the cessation of the strong winds. The sooner the better. Every day counts. But also, we have the concept that not only prayers of an ordinary nature, but there's a fire burning, then we need to put, in Hebrew, hitlahavot means when flames spread. Literally, lahav is a flame. But also, hitlahavot means fiery enthusiasm. So we have to put the fiery enthusiasm into our service of Hashem, into our prayers, and also into our Torah learning and teaching, and also in increase of chesed and removal of destructive arguments. And this is the lesson for each one of us, especially for those amongst us whose main occupation at present is learning and teaching. And this is very important. One of the explanations in our daily prayer that we speak separately in the introduction to the God of Avraham, the God of Yitzchak, and the God of Yaakov. Because there are three pillars on which the world is based. This is a universal statement made by Shimon HaTzadik in the time of Hellenism to explain the universal message in a time when the Greeks were having discussions of philosophical nature. What are the major elements of the world which are responsible for the existence of the world? So Shimon HaTzadik, who lived lived in those times, he said we should know the world is based Torah, Avodah, Gemilut, Chasadim. I'll tell you an interesting episode that happened when my son Rav Avraham was a chaplain in the army, and he was in one of the major army bases with his family. That's where he lived. And we were made bar mitzvah for his eldest son. So on the Shabbat of the mitzvah, there was in attendance not only a lot of the Jewish soldiers, but also nearly all the chaplains, Muslim chaplains, Christian chaplains. They all joined in. And they asked for a discussion with me, and especially the head chaplain. The head chaplain was about to retire, and he asked me, if it's possible, that I should have a question and answer session with the chaplains, which I did. So he told me this head chaplain was going to retirement. And he said, I'm faced with a problem because I felt great fulfillment in being a chaplain. And he said, I got great encouragement and insight from what your son taught us. And the world is based on Torah, Avodah, Gemilut, and Torah, Avodah, Gemilut, Chasadim, which I said to English. Torah means to uphold and study the moral and religious principles of the faiths, to infuse a moral style into our life. Avodah means to keep praying, teach us how to pray. And Gemilut Chasadim means to do kindness. And really this is the work of all of us chaplains, on a universal basis, different ways. The arrangement with the chaplaincy in America is that all the chaplains, they'd have to take a rota in solving social problems, which each one should have certain times when he is expected to deal with. Doesn't matter if they're atheists or they're believers, Catholics, Protestants, Muslims, he has to deal with them. He said now he's going to retirement, doesn't really know what to do. How can he continue? So I explained to him, you can continue wherever you are. You can still, this is the principle which Shimon HaTzadik put forward. Because wherever you are, you can always find ways of bringing God nearer to family, to friends, to others. You can set up even groups, teach people morality, teach people how to pray, the essence of prayer, link up with God, and how to do loving kindness. So I think this is a good way of understanding, putting in today's context. The question is often asked, this year I had asked from many people, why do we end saying Magen Avraham? Why only protect Avraham? Because it's called Magen. But he also protected, perhaps using different expressions, also Yitzchak and Yaakov. And Yaakov even more, if we look at what's described to us. So why should we end with Magen Avot, all of them together? So one of the answers is, it's got to be Magen Avraham in everything. Avraham is the pillar of Chesed. He demonstrated how Chesed has to enter into spreading morality, spreading the God of Israel, the God of the universe, is a God who has made Derech Hashem to establish justice and charity, Lasot Tzedakah v'Chesed. That is the way of Hashem. That's what we call Torah. And it also established that Chesed should go into Tefillah, how he prayed for Sodom. So we see, also we, put in our present-day lifestyle, those of us who perhaps are primarily involved in prayer and in learning and teaching, we have to know all our prayer, learning and teaching has got to have upon it chatimah. It's got to have the stamp, the seal of loving kindness. That when you learn Torah, it's not just for yourself. That was Noah. It's for everybody. It's for the whole world. And if it's a question of prayer, the prayer should be for everyone. Therefore, today, when we've got such terrible threats from people with non-conventional weapons at the pressing of a button, and there's so many millions of people being eliminated, killed, we have to go in the opposite direction. All our prayers have to be, they should be saved. Since we're not dealing with direct protection. Same applies to extinguishing fires. And we have to put the enthusiasm of Chesed, of Avraham Avinu, and especially what we learned in the previous talks concerning the message that goes out from the Temple Mount. And the way in which Avraham Avinu made altars, Mizbeach, had upon it a constant fire, which should never go out. And the altar, which is referred to for the Korban Tamid Rasuyah Bahar Sinai, it started at Sinai. Because Sinaitic revelation, which is accompanied by fire, represents also the enthusiasm we have to the two aspects of the altar. Whereas one aspect is to build up our lives with a constant enthusiasm for the moral teachings of the Torah, of the Kedusha of the Torah, of learning and teaching, and also of prayer to Hashem. Because these are the two aspects. We've got to pray to Hashem, especially in times when we see a fire like this, we know about it, and it's still threatening so many different areas. So obviously every precaution has to be taken. We've got to do as much as possible to save people from the fire physically. Especially we have to put in also the dimension of putting it into our prayers. Everyone should say a prayer in Shema Kolenu. You find even in most Sidurim a special prayer for rain. So it's advisable for all of us to say, you can say it in English, a prayer for rain. Because rain at this time could save the burning. It could extinguish many of the fires. So that's what we have to consider. That's the message, I would say, for all those who are engaged in learning and praying. And I think yesterday was the second Yortzeit for the Kadoshim, for the holy ones who lost their lives al Kiddush Hashem in the most cruel manner. Their life was stopped. They left families, they left disciples, they were amongst the big saints, to some extent hidden saints, in Har Nof. Each one of them was a demonstration of marvelous chesed and marvelous learning and teaching of Torah and the Midot Tovot. And as some of us sitting here, and even more so those who live in Har Nof, families, many of whom you know, well, many of them, some of these holy people, they also prayed in our yeshiva. So of course, we all have a big question. Why does Hashem take such people away from us in such a cruel manner? So this is answered to some extent in the Parsha of the week. Because we do find everyone asks the question, what happened to Sorrow? She was the korban of the shock, whichever way you put it, Hashem described in many ways, that she thought that Yitzchak had been taken as an offering. The thought came to her, that means the idea came to her. Or maybe even she was informed in some way that since Avraham and Sarah didn't return, Avraham and Yitzchak did not return, as far as she knew, she wasn't informed. But she was informed, or she dreamt, or she saw it, that he was taken to be a burnt offering. And the shock of that brought to end. That's why she died. At the beginning of the Parsha is, these are the years of sorrow, and there's a repetition. Vayu Chaye Sorrow, that describes the number. Then it says Shanei Chaye Sorrow again. The Midrash says Hashem knows the years and even the days of the perfect ones. So they say it was destined from before that she would die at that time. She could have lived longer, but because one time she asked that the differences she had with Avraham concerning Ishmael, so she expressed her disappointment and anger because she felt Avraham, in his enormous chesed, he wanted to keep Ishmael in the house. And he was hoping his influence and Sarah's influence could change Ishmael. She knew that the risk, because she'd seen certain things in the behavior of Ishmael, which Avraham did not see, and she had Ruach HaKodesh in that direction. Although she was the one who had brought Hagar into the home and suggested, as it were, surrogate motherhood, a word that says that my maidservant has been so loyal, and she became like a Giorat. As a Shifra, she was a Giorat. She saw also divine influences in the home, but when she was pregnant and Sarah was not, and the plan was that the baby should be nurtured and built up in his education, in his qualities through Sarah, but she then regarded herself as the main mistress of the house. And therefore, she became even insulting to Sarah. She said, can't stay. So she had to go back. And then we have, when Ishmael grew up, he became even dangerous in his so-called playing games, dangerous games with Yitzchak. They said, can't keep him here. And she's a Hamasi Alecha. At the beginning, when all this started, she said, my anger is against you. Let Hashem judge. So the sages say, because she brought this as a word, judgment, that Hashem should judge with Midat Hadin, Avraham, because the person should never give his din over to the heaven. Whatever, shouldn't say let Hashem judge or let Hashem punish. That's implied. Because of that, the date for her death was fixed beforehand. And that she died as a korban to some extent of the Akedah. Yitzchak survived and Avraham survived, and this was part of the way we can understand what underlies the various hints brought in the text, which go very deep and which have great relevance to today. Because what we're seeing through a deeper analysis, what happened to the forefathers, is happening now. And following that, that's how the Prophet Chaim said what happens to Am Yisrael and the nations of the world is all a type of fulfillment of what's written in the prophets. And the Rambam says you only really know what the different episodes mean when they happen. And as I explained to you already from a few sources, also from the ashes of Yitzchak. Yes, Yitzchak are really literal, not with Yitzchak himself, with the principle of Ma'aseh Avot Siman Lebanim. We have shown in the previous talks the ashes of the Yitzchak, which Hashem should remember to have compassion upon us. They happen literally. Previously, most of them say it's like the ashes of Yitzchak, that he was ready to offer him up completely, which also meant afterwards going on the Mizbeach. Although there's a hint, when Yitzchak asked his father, all right, we brought the wood, brought everything to bring the offering, where's the ram? So Avraham said, God will show the ram. He says, Elehim yachelo hasreh le'olah b'ni. He said, he's going to bring the ram, my son. So, in other words, the Chazal say, also the tears that Avraham were flowing from his eyes when he took the knife to do the shechita, the tears went into the eyes of Yitzchak and blinded him to a great extent. Changed him that henceforth he would not be able to see anything bad in other people, which is the reason why he couldn't see the evil in Esau. He couldn't see good in Esau. In other words, Avraham on his side, he was really at the same time, I'm going to fulfill what Hashem told me to do. And he was ready to do it. And he overcame all his personal feelings of love and emotion for Yitzchak in order to do it. Because Hashem said, I've got to do it. But he did it whilst he was crying. His heart was crying and praying to Hashem, maybe there's another way. Maybe, as he said to the two other lads who didn't see the Shekhinah on the mountain, we're going to come back to you. He was hoping that would happen. He says, we'll come back to you. So now we have a question on all this description. And this question is brought by many commentators, and one of the deepest commentators of the Chumash is Rabbeinu Bechaya, the great, deep commentator. And he asked the question, when Avraham Avinu, he buried his wife, made a funeral, and he said eulogy, and then it's because of the death of Sarah that he felt it's my duty, I have to bury her in this land, and this land has to belong to me for the future. Because Hashem, in any case, he said I should go to all the area of Eretz Israel in all directions, and he promised it's going to belong to me and to the seed. So he knew the seed I've got. Yitzchak came out alive from the Akedah. I lost my wife, and surely I've got to acquire a place in Eretz Israel. So he lived nearby. He was friendly and was respected by the people around. Some become Gerim, some not yet. So he said, I want to pay the full price to make sure there should be no claim for all times, because he knew, after all, my mission cannot be fulfilled by myself. Impossible. Hashem, in all his blessings that he's given me, said, through me will bless all the nations of the world. One man and all nations of the world is impossible. So it must be that Hashem wants me to have followers and to have Ibazaracha, to have offspring, that they will change the world. And the world is filled with idolatry and corruption. So how can it be done? Let me at least have a small place. And he also knew something about this place. I found out afterwards, some say. This was the place where Adam and Chava were already buried. Adam and Eve were buried there. So, and that, if it's very interesting, that same place was also the place where there's great potential. Because nobody can claim, like it says in the first verse of Rashi in the Chumash, that you're robbers, you took it by force. It was paid more than it's worth. Avraham Avinu for all generations. And it was the first place of the kingship of whom? Of whom? Whose kingship was declared first in Hebron? Don't know? King David. King David established his kingship first in Hebron. It's interesting that the place about which there is great machloket, and in fact the Muslims took it in hand, and not a simple place to the Jews. If there have been periods where there are good relationships in Islam and the Jews, and then they could live there. In fact, there's certain yeshiva that took that name. Which yeshiva is that? What's it called? Hebron. Where is yeshiva Hebron today? Where is it?
In Sanhedria, or in Geula.
It used to be in Geula. Yeah, we rented it for a time, our yeshiva. And I studied there when it was Geula. Now years ago it moved to Givat Mordechai. Not in Hebron. Why not? Then if you know,
Too many Arabs.
because the extreme distortion of Islam. by the Mufti of Jerusalem. Hebron began as an offspring of a great European yeshiva known as Slobodka. And one of the heads of that yeshiva decided the time has come. He decided this about 100 years ago to make a branch of the yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. He didn't want to do it in Jerusalem. There was too much also argument between the Jews and the Muslims. And also, Hebron was like a modern yeshiva. And in Jerusalem, the really major yeshivot, they had their own principles also of the dress code. And the dress code of the Hebron Bochrim was a modern dress code. They were very high up in the standard of learning. And Hebron at that time was a peaceful community. They had such great giants, as the Sedichemet and others. And they established good relationships with the religious heads of the Islam community. But what happened? The Mufti of Jerusalem, he came with a distortion of the moral principles of the Quran and said, we have to wage a war to eliminate the Jews. And he was an anti-Semite who believed in killing people who were Jews, massacring in a cruel manner. So in 1929, Hitler was only just starting, not yet in government, with his anti-Semitic propaganda. And similarly, he believed in one God, that one God asked us to kill all the Jews. So there is ambivalence in the life of Muhammad. Nevertheless, the Quran as such basically accepts the Noahide code, whilst Mufti of Jerusalem said, when it comes to the Jews, we're obligated to eliminate them in order that Islam can become a world religion, universal. So he massacred the yeshiva in cold blood in Hebron. The majority of people in the yeshiva were killed in this manner in Hebron. So, since then, there have been attempts even to repeat it in different ways. And the Mufti of Jerusalem, when Hitler started, so he moved to Berlin and became his partner in the plan to remove every Jew from this globe. So Hebron was really the starting point of creating really a unity to some extent between Ishmael and between Am Yisrael, but it turned out in the opposite direction. Even today there's enormous tension. So the questions like this, basic question, I'll give you the actual words of the Rabbeinu Bachai who asked this question. He says he doesn't understand when a wife and a mother dies, who has the major duty to bury her and to mourn her and say a eulogy? Who is the main mourner?
Children.
Children. The children. So why didn't Yitzchak go to the... Why is it not mentioned? What happened to him? So what's the answer? Okay, do you have an answer?
Says that he learned 2 years in
Pardon?
Yeshiva.
Okay, but even if you've gone to learning, you should have come. You should come. If there's such a thing, Chas v'sholom shouldn't happen to anyone. The person in the yeshiva has to go to the levaya and the hesped. So I'll use his words. And he says, doesn't understand that it should have said, Avraham and Yitzchak came lispod l'sara vivkota, to make a hesped, to cry for a death. Because certainly it's fitting for Yitzchak to give a eulogy on his mother, who was such a saint, and to cry upon her. And he says, there's a far big obligation upon the son than there was for Avraham. Furthermore, who loved him more than anyone? Yitzchak was beloved by his father, even more beloved by the mother, because she gave birth to him in miraculous manner, thinking it's impossible. Also, when he was born, her soul was tied up with his soul. How do you answer it? So he answers, it would appear that Yitzchak did not know about her death, because she died when she heard about the attempt that he should be sacrificed. That gave her such shock that she died. And if Yitzchak, for example, when there is like I had in the family this week, that if there is a person who's closely connected with the person who died, but that person is sick, and that person finds out, if he will find out about it, it might be a shock to him, which could be the means of him dying. Then you don't inform him. I went last night to the Shiva house of this family member. It's got on it a note, no one should inform the brother who's in London. But that brother in London is sick, and he finds out, he might die from it. And that's what they were afraid of. As soon as even though Yitzhak came out alive, but the fact that this happened, that first it was to be brought as an offering, it could have killed her. And the truth is it did kill her. So therefore, as soon as Yitzhak came out alive, Avraham said, we must not tell Yitzchak, but she died. Because he'll never forgive himself. He said he should have refused the whole thing. Or listen to Hashem. On the other hand, if a mother finds out, she'll die. Should at least have argued about that point. He said, from the moment that he was already bound on the altar, there's nothing further mentioned about him. Because when Avraham Yitzchak went to the mountain of Moriah, it says, Avraham came back to the other two whom he had left at the bottom of the mountain. He went, Ishmael, Eliezer. Why does it say Vayoshuvu? They both came back. What happened to Yitzchak? So maybe he was left on the Mount Moriah for 3 years until he came to the age of 40, and then he married Rivka. I want to explain the Midrash. I understand better. The Midrash says like this. One says, what do you mean we're left on the mountain? So one says he went to Gan Eden for 3 years. That can also be taken as equivalent to another Midrash which says he learnt in the yeshiva of Shem ve'Eva, yeshiva of Shem. which is also in that area. Because it said in previous Parsha, Umalkitzedek Melech Shalem. Shalem is another name for Yerushalayim, the early name. It's also in the area of Moriah. In that area, not perhaps on the top of the mountain, but in that whole area, Shem established his yeshiva. So Avraham said, he's been through such an experience, and one way to bring him as an offering, I go back to what I began to share with today, let him put all his efforts into becoming a burnt up offering to Hashem, learning Torah. So for 3 years, he said, after such an experience I've been through, tied up on the Mizbeach, to be one who brings an offering to Hashem of his own self. I will go, like the Gemara said, how can a person acquire Torah? Only somebody who will die for it. But who will die for it? He'll use all his energies with enthusiasm of fire to go and dedicate to learning Torah. But previously just learned from Avraham. Now let him learn from Shem to strengthen the Torah. So he went for 3 years. Maybe that's what Midas means. He went to Gan Eden. Because Gan Eden, we say in the bracha on learning Torah, Chai olam nata b'tochenu. It's a different dimension of living when you learn Torah. When you learn, after Moshe Rabbeinu, when he received the Torah, 40 days and 40 nights, he was able to live without having any physical sustenance. What did he live on? He lived on spiritual energy. And even when you're not in his madrega, and you're learning yeshiva, but learning yeshiva brings you a different dimension of living. On the high level, Chai Olam, is eternal life. So Yitzchak experienced that near the mountain. He even said afterwards, yeah. Now, it's something very interesting that Rabbeinu Bechai adds. Someone asked me the question yesterday, maybe some of you were present. He said, why is it called Chai Yisoro? Yesterday's Parsha. Most of the Parsha deals with the servant of Avraham who got a wife for Yitzchak. So you could say, that I explained, sometimes the Parsha is named according to the beginning, even though the contents of the Parsha deals with different subjects. If you go through all the Parshas of the year, you'll see that applies to many of them. Most of them take something from the first verses, but some of them take from in the context. True. So here, also you can say, and that's the fine remark of Ibn Bechai, a deep remark. He says that Yitzchak stayed in the area of Amoriah for 3 years, and then he married Rivka. And then where is it mentioned? It's mentioned near the end of the Parsha, where it says that Yitzchak ba mibo be'al ha'chai ro'i. He was coming to the well of the living God who sees me. So this is an important remark. That comes at the end of the Parsha. In other words, it says when Yitzchak saw Rivka, and then he brought her to the tent of his mother, of sorrow, and all the time, since the death of sorrow, the tent was empty, but while Sorah was alive, there was a blessing in the dough, which remained from 1 week to the next. There was the light burning from one Shabbos to the next Shabbos, and there was a cloud of going up from over the tent. Really, these are the three elements of the future Beit HaMikdash in the holy place. There's the table of showbread, which remained fresh from one week to the next. There's the light of the menorah, which never went out, and from which you know the Shekhinah rests amongst Am Yisrael, because it never went out. And there was the cloud of glory over the tent. So really, the tent of Avraham and Sarah was a Beit HaMikdash of sorts. And that's why you can say that Beit HaMikdash, the oil of Avraham and Sarah, is a prototype of the future sanctuary, the Mishkan, where also had these three things. And that's why it says, so the purpose of the sanctuary was, in fact, to make each home like the home of Avraham and Sarah. But without Sarah, Avraham, he could not really achieve the heights of neither of the continuity of Torah, Sarah wasn't there anymore, and meanwhile Yitzchak wasn't ready yet for passing it on. Also, neither was there somebody to help with Achnasat Orchim, that's the showbread, and neither was the Shekhinah there. But when Yitzchak took Rivka into the tent, everything came back. Rivka was the continuation of sorrow. She carried on the chain of the lifestyle, these three things, which are really Torah, Vodah, Gemilut Chasadim. Showbread's Gemilut Chasadim. The menorah of the light is the light of Torah. And Tefillah is the way in which you bring the Shekhinah, the gate to heaven, which is shown by the inner altar, Mizbach HaKatoret. From where in the Beit HaMikdash, what produced the Katoret? And Katoret is connected also with Keturah. Keturah is the name given to Hagar when she did Teshuvah. So this gives you, really, the whole episode is bound up, how Sorah, the influence Sorah continued. And as we're going to see also, why did Yitzchak choose this place to go and meditate? After all, it was the well from which the Malach spoke to Hagar. And Hagar was the mother of Ishmael. So we see there's an inner connection here. What happened to Ishmael? And then afterwards the parsha ends that when Avraham died, what did the parsha say? Who buried him?
Sons.
Well, how is it mentioned? It says, Yitzchak Ishmael buried him. But Ishmael was the firstborn to Avraham. So he should have gone first. But he admitted that the real firstborn for the future of the people of Israel is Yitzchak. He did Teshuvah. And why is it so relevant? I'll bring you sources for this. Mais Havot Siman Lepanim, that in the end, Ishmael will do Teshuvah and come back to Hashem completely before anybody else, before the other nations. I'll show you where it's mentioned in other places in the Chumash. And this is our hope today as well. But I'll go into the more, if you have a Chumash, we'll go into it further in the next year. But this important message is, we must not give up hope of bringing the, let's say, the moderate Muslim community, bring them to be more pioneers and more active in creating true peace between Yishmael and Yisrael, Israel and the Israelites. And let us never hear such statements as we often do. In fact, I spoke about this Friday night because I heard people talking and somebody shouted out quite often, death to all the Arabs are Amalek. So in the Torah, it's not true. That's not the right approach. Not the right approach of the Chumash, of Chazal, all of us. We have to pray harder than the Muslims, because the sages say even a ganav, before he steals, sometimes Hashem, if a person wants to make a dangerous burglary, wants to do rob a lot of people, rob the banks. So he prays beforehand, please God help me in this, help me. Hashem will listen to his prayers. He listens to the prayers of Rishonim, if they pray hard enough. And they say, no, I believe in you, the one God, you want God have to save me. The police shouldn't find me, the text shouldn't find me, I want to steal this $1 million. I tell you, in the underworld, there are plenty of people who pray hard to God. They should be successful in all their crimes. Not just listen to them. So what do we have to do? Our prayers have to be stronger. We've got to pray more strongly to Hashem that the criminals, especially those who want to murder innocent people and murder Jews, Hashem should help to change them. He should help. They shouldn't be successful. And we hope they'll change, and if they don't change, then which we find. This is the approach of Chazal. If they don't change, there's no other way. They want to continue murdering. It's better that Hashem should help, they should die, rather they go on killing innocent people. But we hope very much that they'll change. And some of them are willing to change. So let's build up those some. And that's why today we live in such a topsy-turvy world that there's a lot of Jews who don't realize sufficiently the biblical sources for how to deal with Israel and the Arab world. And therefore sometimes they make partnerships and they have sympathy for those who just make suicide bombing attacks, killing themselves and killing others. Oh, we're going to have pity on them. Don't attempt such things. It comes, you might not supposed to imprison him, or only imprison him for a short time. And then if he still wants to carry on the same way, we let him out of the prison. They don't understand enough. Or if they would understand more about what's written, both in the Tanakh and both in the moral interpretations of the Quran, they would behave differently. Especially, let's say, with regard to provoking them going on the Temple Mount, which, according to all the rabbinical authorities from Rav Kook onwards, have followed the view you're not allowed to go on the Temple Mount except if it's really necessary for self-defense. Otherwise, you shouldn't go. And we shouldn't provoke them. Which it's okay, we know. And some people come and plot, you're going to blow up the mosque. This is not the recommended way. Neither you could look carefully in the Chumash, nor if you look in the words of our sages. Let's hope there'll be peace soon.